It's time for episode 81 of The Crisis Show, here on Google Hangouts, on YouTube, on Twitter, and wherever else you have this link around the world. Good evening from New York. My name is Rich Klein. I'm president of Rich Klein Crisis Management and founder and host of The Crisis Show. So tonight I want to talk about the President of the United States in this abbreviated episode of The Crisis Show. Now, as most of you know, last Thursday, President Obama had a news conference, and a question came up about how to deal with ISIS in Syria. The president's response was, quote, "We don't have a strategy yet." Now, that quote was like the shot heard around the world. CNN, within minutes of that statement, posted it on their scroll across all the television and computer screens, and within an hour of that news conference, Josh Earnest, the White House press secretary, got himself booked on Wolf Blitz's show to try to clarify what the president meant, basically to walk the president back off the cliff. Now, folks, if a misstatement like that can happen to the President of the United States, who has so many advisors, it certainly can happen to you. And so what I want to talk about on the show are some things that you can do before stepping up to that podium, before doing an interview with a reporter, or before sending an email in response to a question from reporters. So, a couple of things that are real important. First, you have to make sure that you have thought about the many kinds of questions that will be asked of you at a particular news conference. Remember, you don't have to be in crisis mode to have a crisis result from a news conference, as we saw with President Obama last week. And by the way, this crisis, this reputation crisis about the president and the administration's actions and inactions on foreign policy are continuing here almost 1 week later. People are still writing about it and talking about it, and certainly President Obama's political opponents are taking advantage of that. In fact, as I wrote in my LinkedIn piece yesterday on this subject, if President Obama was up for re-election today, it would be fair game to take that soundbite and use it against him. In fact, most political operatives would probably do just that. So in thinking about these questions that you can be asked during your crisis situation, remember, you don't have to answer every single question that a reporter, editor, or producer puts to you. What you should do is create 2 or 3 strong messages that you can continually repeat and come back to advance your point of view. Don't get caught up in the reporter's bias or any negativity that the media may want to hang on you. Okay, so it's your job to write down, memorize those 2 or 3 key messages that deflect any negativity and at the same time advance your viewpoint. One of the other things that the president could have done last Thursday was to have Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel or the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Martin Dempsey, beside him to deal with those kinds of questions. And this is a lesson for all of you out there who are leaders. You don't have to master every single subject. You should definitely pull in your team to help you answer certain questions. We see that all the time when there are news conferences involving major crimes. You'll have various people at the podium giving out information about their specialty, about their specialized knowledge. And so the president might have avoided, and I say might have avoided, this slippery slope of language if he had had Chuck Hagel or Martin Dempsey there to answer those specific questions about military strategy. I think that makes you look stronger as a leader instead of trying to be a know-it-all. And I'm not saying the president was trying to do that. I just think it was a mistake not to have a military person there to answer those kind of questions. It may have prevented this reputation crisis. Finally, one of the other things you can do to protect yourself from these kinds of slip-ups at the podium or in any media interview is to get some real media training. At Rich Klein Crisis Management, what we do is this. We do our research on the people we're going to media train, reading their bios and understanding the issues they would have to deal with. We then look at the current news about their institution, their business, as well as their industry, and think about the hot button issues they could be asked about. And so then we go in with a video camera and we pepper them with question after question after question to see how they perform, to see how they think on their feet, and to see if they stay on message. And we do this without any preparation. We want to first of all see how they handle the hot seat of being in the media glare. We then review the tape. I'm an old schooler, the tape. We review the video, and we then look for ways to improve the messaging, the body language, and anything else that makes them come off as more credible, more convincing to their critical audiences. So this is really important, and you should do this long before a crisis situation arises. Get that media training, get before a camera, get comfortable answering questions that you may not be expecting. But if you've done your homework, the things we've talked about on the show, then you will be much better prepared to come off much more credible to the people that matter, your critical audiences. If you want to tweet about anything that you heard me say, please use hashtag #TheCrisisShow. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you soon.